Dr. Marshall Shepard, Director of the Atmospheric Sciences Program at the University of Georgia, former president of the American Meteorological Society, and the host of the Weather Channel's Weather Geeks. I get them all the time on Twitter. I get, hey, Dr. Shepard, I got 20 inches of global warming in my yard. What are you guys talking about? Really, what that illustrates is people have a hard time differentiating their understanding of weather and climate. I often will say weather is your mood and climate is your personality. So a given day's weather says nothing about climate change any more than what I'm wearing today says about what's in my closet. And so one of the most important things we have to do as scientists and educators is talk to people and make them understand that a day or a week or even a few weeks weather doesn't define climate. In fact, as we are taping or talking about this today, NASA and NOAA just announced that 2017 is the second and third warmest years on record. So we have to look at what's happening around us globally, not what's happening in our own backyard. You know, we hear world hunger, and that doesn't mean that everyone's starving. Just because I'm having lunch today doesn't mean I ended world hunger. People try to make these sort of large sweeping discussions based on their own observations or where they live. We have to remember it's not called Atlanta warming. It's not called Lithonia warming. It's global warming. But I actually prefer climate change because it gets at the root that there are changes happening in our climate, some of which are natural. Of course, scientists know that climate changes naturally. We just have a human steroid on top of it, just like we see in baseball. Home run hitters could hit home runs naturally as well. But during the steroid era, they were hitting longer ones and more of them. So it's very important that people understand that climate change is not defined by a cold day. In fact, here's the kicker. I'm going to drop the punchline on you right now. We're actually having winter. It's winter and we're cold and we're getting snowstorms. We've been so warm. We've had such abnormally warm winters that people are losing their minds now because we're actually having winter. That really in itself indicates how our changing climate has gotten us used to warmer winters instead of regular winters. Climate change is a better term because it illustrates all of the changes that are happening in terms of perhaps more intense hurricanes, even greater heat waves, more intense rainstorms that lead to flooding. Those are all symptomatic of climate change. Global warming is just one aspect of climate change in the same way that running a fever is just one aspect of the flu. And that's how we have to try to convey this. And so there's been a lot of mixed messaging about what we call it. I don't get kind of bogged down in that and all the comments on social media. The bottom line is data sets, and many different ones from different organizations and nations around the world, show us that our climate system is warming. Yes, our climate changes naturally, but there's a human steroid on top of that change, and that warming temperature has implications for our storms, heat waves, how hard it rains, sea level rise, etc. Many of these things Georgians will be vulnerable to when we talk about sea level rise on the coast, when we talk about intense rainfall that causes flooding in Atlanta or heat waves during the summertime. And here's one that's going to blow people's minds if they're listening to this right now. There are some studies that suggest that warming climate could actually lead to more cold, extreme cold events in terms of blizzards, because you get jet stream patterns that lead to colder, low pressure systems and these big ridges, which we call highs, that cause heat waves and droughts. It's counterintuitive to people in the same way that many people don't understand that it can actually get cold in deserts, but it does. No, what I would say is you're just experiencing a normal winter. Winter is caused when the earth is tilted away from the sun in the northern hemisphere. We're in winter right now. We're going to always have snowstorms, Joe Blow. We're going to always have cold days in the wintertime. Climate signal is much larger than that. And in fact, 2017, second and third warmest on record, according to NASA and NOAA.